Brzezinski and JoJo from Jers. Ladies, I'm so glad that we're all doing this together. To Michelle's point, we need community. Other folks need to know that they're not in this by themselves. And frankly, no one's going to save us but us. So the more the merrier. And we're glad that we could do this collaboration today. And Julie, I'm going to start with you. Just some of your initial thoughts. How are you feeling? Did you watch the inauguration today? Like, what's happening? And just for folks, if you do not follow Julie, please follow her. Also, please like and subscribe her Substack, Salty Politics. She's a fellow Jersey girl, just like JoJo from Jersey. It's 3 against 1 today, Michelle.
I know.
It's 3 Jersey girls against 1 New Yorker.
I'm across the Hudson.
All right, Michelle, you're on the wrong side of the Hudson. A couple of things. One is I didn't watch on TV because I didn't want to give anybody the ratings, but I have to admit I cheated and followed it along in the New York Times. Because I wanted to see what he was going to say to make sure that it was going to be just as crazy as the American Carnage speech from a few years ago. It was actually crazier, if possible, because now he feels he's been anointed by God or Jesus or whoever he's been anointed by since he got shot, allegedly. But the other thing I'm going to say is actually I didn't cry and I wasn't sad. I woke up this morning and I felt totally energized, and I mean it. I think I've gone through my stages of grief, and I wrote a Substack about this today, actually. But I feel like since November 5th, remember when we were kids, we were little, you kind of dreaded Mondays. So Sunday, like I would get really depressed Sunday night because I kind of think about all the tests I'd have to take and all the work I had to do. And Sunday nights were the worst because you just
Sunday scaries. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Monday rolled around and you're like, all right, it's go time. Like I'm going to just go to school and deal with it. And today was kind of Monday for me in that sense, literally and also figuratively, because from my perspective, like it's go time, like enough of the self-pity, enough of the shock, enough of the depression, because you said it, nobody's going to save us. By the way, our friends in DC, they don't know what they're doing. They're not going to save us. And if we're going to take this party back and we're going to take this country back, it's going to be us. And it's going to be it's going to be women because we get shit done. And so from my perspective, I actually woke up this morning ready to rumble, ready to work, ready to just take these people back, take this country back. And take these people on and just let's go for it. Let's not sit around feeling sorry for ourselves. We've got to do it.
100%. Since this was Martin Luther King Day and in preparation, I've been participating in some events. And then, of course, a lot of the MLK quotes and speeches come up and people have been quoting him lately. And I used to do a speech for Black History Month called Living Your Legacy Now. And it was all about Martin Luther King and his legacy and what we can do now to live our legacy. You don't have to die necessarily to leave a legacy. You can start living it now. And one of the quotes about the do not wallow in the valley of despair, it's actually part of a biblical quote, but he was very adamant about that. And that's how I felt, right? Like today was the first day I've cried tears since the election, really, because it hit me they were tears of anger and of heartbreak at the same time. I'm so angry, and watching, we were on a call with Michelle and Mallory, who's our national press secretary. And we were all on the call together, and watching Trump be inaugurated inside the Capitol Rotunda was just, it hit me at once. I was just angry and furious that our country would do this and disrespect all of what that hall means, the people who put their lives on the line, like all of those emotions came back at once. And then after I got done crying about it, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, that's it. All right. You know what? This is it now. It's real. We've got to suit up and get ready. Joe, I know you feel the same way because you're a tough broad from Jersey like us. So
that is what I love about all of you so much. And that's what we clicked, I think, the most on it just immediately. Was it's like, okay, yeah, Tara, you said it on my podcast the other day about you're going to take some punches. You're going to take some punches, but you go in between the rounds and you get the wax or whatever that is that they put in the cuts. And
cut man comes in.
thing and all the right. And then you get right back in the ring. Like all of us give ourselves the grace to feel this acutely because, like, first of all, we're human beings. And secondly, most importantly of all, we love this country, right? We love what this country embodies, and we love the idea of America and the idea of the promise of this country. We all believe in those things. We've all benefited in different ways from our family members also believing in those things. And our country has largely, not always, and they have much work to do in perfecting it, met a lot of those, ideals, let's just say. And what has happened right now and what is so hard for me is it does really feel like the abandonment of the core of who we are. And as the mom, like the thing that activated me in 2016 related to all of this was that I couldn't justify to my own children how the bad guy could have prevailed in a case like this, right? How he would have prevailed over the public servant, good guy, so to speak. And I made a choice then to sort of right that wrong. And we had this moment, this blip, right, where we had righted that wrong. And now to be back here, it almost is unfathomable. But I, like all of you, right? Like I had to take that minute this morning. I woke up with that pit in my stomach. I literally woke up, opened my eyes and went, oh no. Like it was like, it's here, right? And I thought I was going to be able to watch it. I thought I had the constitution and the fortitude to be able to watch it. And then I went to look at it and I was like, no, I don't. I actually don't want to see that, because what bothered me most of all, Tara, to your point again, that rotunda, what we saw transpire there just a few years ago is 1000% the worst of us. It was an attack on everything we hold dear as the foundation of who we are as a nation and what we supposedly aspire to be. And they destroyed it. They put garbage all over the floor. Feces and stole things, and they defaced it. And Andy Kim, who was there today, was on his hands and knees at midnight, cleaning up the rotunda, which, by the way, I can never visit without crying. I look up at that ceiling. Harry Dunn gave us a tour, my kids and I immediately looked up at the ceiling because Harry gives you this fun perspective where you take a picture, and I immediately started crying, and I am awe-inspired by it. So being smacked in the face, literally, really was how that felt by this visual, this stark visual.
Yep.
I did feel down and depressed, and I didn't cry, which is, I'm a crier. I had every other emotion. I did cry for a second, but then I let myself feel that, because we have to give ourselves the grace and space and room to validate our own feelings. And then I said, like you guys did, that's enough. Okay. I've done my crying. I've done my mourning. I've done my, squeezing the sky for why, asking questions. And I'm done with that now. Now it's time to get to work. And we've all been like this since before the election, right? Like, but really the day of the election day too, I was down and somebody sent me a text like, you got to get up. And I was like, I don't know if I can. Like,
we need a minute. You
right.
need a minute.
Yeah. And then I got up and I remember I started tweeting. I was like, I feel like I'm going to throw up all these things, and there's that but, right? But if we lay down and give up, then what? Then what? Then what do we say to our country? What do we say to our family members? What do I say to my children, right? Like, what? No, this wasn't worth fighting for because it's just too hard. No. And that's why I think there's so much strength in women. Look, I love our men allies out there. There's a lot of incredible men out there. My dad was an incredible man. My son will hopefully agree. He is growing up to be an incredible man. But women get shit done, and we lead the way, and we know pain, right? Like, that's why we have the babies. Like, we know how to deal, because there's something on the other side that is greater than us that we have to endure and get through. And the last part is, I woke up this morning and the first thought I had was Martin Luther King Jr., because I thought, my God, to have this dark, horrible thing happening on a day that honors his legacy as it should, it gutted me. But I thought, well, I'm going to choose a quote too, that I went with, and I went with this one: "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy."
It's my favorite MLK quote. I say it all the time. And I was trying not to do it again. Like this time, I'm like, there's other ones. I'm so glad you said that, because it's like one of my favorites.
I have a good one because it got me through so many hard times in my life. And then I have a question for all of you. But the quote that I love that MLK did not originate, but kind of made popular, is the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I want anybody watching this to know that. We will get through this. It sucks. It is a really long arc, but it does bend towards justice, because I truly believe with every fiber of my being, as I think somebody who's only immigrant can, that this country is better than what we have right now. But I have a question for you guys. In 2016, when it really hit me that Donald Trump won, and we were in for a whole new world. I had no idea how bad it could get, but even that early on, I remember I was still at Fox News. I used to work at Fox, for those who don't know. And I was on the set of a show called Outnumbered. And of course, Fox wall-to-wall live coverage the day before the inaugural, so January 19th of 2016. You had a plane landing at Andrews Air Force Base that said United States of America on the side. And coming out of that plane was the entire Trump family, Ivanka and the boys and, whoever. And I looked at this family, and if you grew up in New Jersey, as Tara and I and Joe did, or Michelle, if you grew up in New York as you did, especially if you grew up in the 80s, you remember the shit show that the Trump family was, and it continues to be. And just seeing this plane with the United States of America on it, and that family coming out of it, and it just, at that precise moment, I almost started bawling on TV, and of course, everybody else I was with was thrilled and ecstatic, and I just couldn't believe it. This time around, I didn't have that reaction. I wasn't shocked. I didn't cry. I was grim. Like, I was like, okay, here we are. There was no shock to me about his win. I don't know if anybody else experienced that kind of phenomenon, or whether people were shocked that he won again, or
it wasn't. Well, it wasn't. I was shocked that he won again, but not. I mean, Michelle had the foreboding, like, eerie feeling. She was weeks before. She was like, he's gonna win, and I was like, he can't win. But I knew there was always the possibility. Michelle, like you.
No, I had
more
this
than I did.
Yeah, I mean, it was more, I hate to use the word premonition because I don't really believe in that stuff, but I had this weird spidey sense that something was not right. I said, something doesn't feel right. I don't like this. I have to keep believing that she can win, that she will win. I have to just keep speaking that into existence. However, something is afoot in the force. And my mother-in-law called my husband, I think it was about 7:15 on election night. And she seemed really jolly and was like, oh, how are you guys doing? And I'm sitting over on the corner of the couch, like kind of freaking out. And he's like, how's Michelle? She's probably feeling pretty good. And Joe was like, Joe's my husband. He said, oh no, Michelle's feeling kind of nervous actually. And because what I was watching was county by county in the areas where they had already closed the polls. She was underperforming about 2
Biden.
points less than Joe Biden had. And I knew that was probably a canary in the coal mine, that things were not going to go our way. But they hadn't, it wasn't 8 o'clock. It wasn't even 9 o'clock yet, where, the majority of them start to close on the East Coast. And so I was holding out hope a little bit. And even in our group chat at Seneca, we had some Dem operatives being like, no, like, it's fine. We got the blue wall. And I'm just like,
and then we saw it go, just like in 2016.
The blue wall just kind of fell down like that. And, my husband and I had a very similar experience on election night in 2016. We were with friends, and at 9 o'clock, we saw the writing on the wall, and our friends were, having a grand old time, listening to the Hamilton soundtrack, like singing, whatever. And my husband looked at me and he goes, we got to go. Let's go. And we grabbed our bags and left. And at the time, we lived in the building underneath the Upper West Side, one of the Hillary Clinton campaign offices.
Oh, God.
And so we stopped in on our way home to say hello, and everyone was crying.
Yeah.
And that was 9:30. So it's just,
I mean, as the only former Republican here, I was at the official RNC election night party, and those who have followed me or have followed us at Seneca know the story. I was at the big RNC party at the W Hotel at POV, which is like a rooftop kind of bar, outdoor lounge, and it overlooks the Washington Monument and the White House. It is a spectacular view. It's one of my favorite places in DC. And we were there, and it was a weird vibe because a lot of the Republicans were like, geez, this guy's not going to win. You know what? Hillary wins, fine. You know, we'll just reconstitute and we'll win in 4 years. Like, it wasn't like nobody thought he was going to win. Nobody thought. And no one thought that by Hillary winning,
he didn't
it was
think
like
he was going to win.
No, that's true. Including him. That's
Yeah.
true. And then when that started to turn, it was not a jubilant feeling in that room, which was interesting. I mean, of course, there's always the, you know, like the bros that are like, oh shit, oh, okay. But for the most part, people were like, wait, what? It was like, what? And then by midnight, 1 o'clock, we saw it was like pretty, like once Florida went, we knew it was over pretty much. And like, I was under the, at the W, I don't think they have this anymore. It's been a while since I've been there, but in the lobby, at the lobby bar, they had these like Andy Warhol style paintings of different presidents and people, and they had a Reagan one there. And I went under the Reagan. I can't find this photo, but I know I took it. I was under the Reagan photo crying. Yeah. And I was like, what have we done? What have we done? I was like, oh my God. And then, but the difference this time around, and I think this is kind of why it's like a weird gambit of emotions that we've all gone through, is that the dynamic is different. In 2017, at least there were some people around him that were like, all right, you know, there'll be some guardrails. And there were people, God bless them, that stopped him from doing the craziest shit. And it was bad enough. But this time, it's different. So the resolve that we have to have is different. This is like a war posture almost. Like, but like in 2017, you know, there were still some traditional ways of fighting it. And it was like, okay. And we didn't quite know. And people, I mean, I knew, we all knew, but others were like, well, maybe. We knew very quickly that this was going to be a problem, and we just didn't know how bad. And I'm going to play our latest ad, Get Ready, because we feel like a lot of folks out there are not ready for the chaos that's about to ensue. We're starting to get drips of it with the executive orders that have come out already and all this crazy Gulf of America shit. It's starting. Mass deportations, it's starting. But I don't know that people fully appreciate it. Not sure they fully appreciate it. And sometimes they have collective amnesia. So we're here to remind folks.
Tara, I just need a minute because it's still loading. I'm so sorry.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Yeah. No problem. No worries. We can keep talking. We'll get ready let us know when it loads.
Yeah, but to that point, that's the difference too. I remember in 2016, all I was thinking was worst case scenarios, right? I was just like, what could he do? He could do all these things. Like, what could he possibly do? And my sisters, you know, said, just don't worry. That the generals will, you know, they'll speak to his better angels, or the office will humble him, or there's checks and balances and career people in place. And a lot of the really bad things that he tried to do, he wasn't able to do. But now the difference is, now we know, right? Like, once you know. Now we know, first of all of those things that he's tried to do, that he will try again and will be able to do, because, to your point again, those grown-ups in the room are gone. Worse than that, the most, like, honestly malevolent people are who are motivated by terrible things have his ear, and they are going to push for that Project 2025 agenda on crack. And that's what we need to be ready for. That's what we need to be ready for and stay ready for.
And one more thing to that, Joe, he's not, unlike 2016, he's not constrained by the law.
Right.
There's a hostile takeover of the Supreme Court that is now allowing him to do anything he wants. I mean, he's the only human being in the world, effectively, who's not constrained. Yeah. Even Vladimir Putin has to worry about, I guess, in the back of his mind, being brought up to The Hague at some point. Trump is the most powerful man in the world with absolute power and absolute immunity. And that's the part that I think people are, you know, I think sometimes it's so hard to wrap your mind around. You don't think about it. And that's the one thing I kind of want people to understand. Like, I get the sense that you just don't want to focus on politics anymore. You need time off, like, for your own well-being, your own self-care, your own mental health. You just need to just get away from it. Whether you want to be in it or not, it is going to demand that you be in it, because it's going to come looking for you.
Yeah.
You know, no more than I can just, you know, refuse to pay taxes. Like, I may not want to pay them, but guess what? The tax man's going to come look for me. Same thing here. You may not want to be engaged here. They're going to engage you, whether you want to be engaged or not. So we got to get back on that horse. I mean, that's the one thing I just have to just keep reiterating. We got to get back on that horse. I get the self-care, but we can't afford to do that. We don't have time for that.
I mean, look, for some people have a different tolerance level than others, right?
Yeah.
Like we're obviously freaks of nature in that we're able to do this because, my husband's all the time. He's like, I don't know how you do this. I'm like, my mom jokes that I have alien blood, right?
Yeah.
Like some of us are built differently, but the difference here though is that whatever that time period is for you personally, right? All of the people who are watching us now, who have supported us, who read our stuff and watch our videos and who are looking to get back in it. Everybody has a different level at when they get re-engaged. But the point is you have to re-engage to Julie's point.
Yeah.
You got to re-engage. And one of the points that we've made, and Julie, she's been a Democratic strategist for years and years and years. We were on the opposite sides of campaigns, I'm sure along the way at some point, but we are all on the same page now because the other side policy doesn't really matter right now. The other side of what's happening is legitimately a fascist movement. It's a fascist movement, and they are chipping away. I was thinking about this in the shower this morning. I narrated an Emmy-nominated documentary for the University of Virginia back in 2020 called Dismantling Democracy. And what is happening? Donald Trump and the Republicans are trying to dismantle our democracy piece by piece. And it's like, we have to be that bulwark. We have to be like, no. And take those little pieces and put them back. You're like, no. We're not going to let you just dismantle this here with no opposition. Mm-hmm. We have to, at every level. Republicans, they never stop. And Democrats for years have just been like, okay, we're going to disengage. Midterms are in 2 years. We'll start fundraising and organizing and advertising and all that like a year from now because people aren't paying attention. No. That's part of the reason why Republicans have beat the shit out of Democrats at local, state, and local levels for years, and now at the national level, because they were behind the 8 ball. There is no taking a break for more than, you can have a week or two, maybe even a month. That shit starts right now. The midterms start now. The other side never stops, and we can't either. And that's I think, a lesson that I hope my Democratic friends understand. And I hope that people who are like, I can't deal. All right, but just know that the enemy never stops. Never. So we can't either.
Yep. We're ready if you'd like to watch.
Ready? Okay, we're ready. Yeah. Get ready. Stay ready. Ready is the theme right now. Okay. Let's show it.
Mass deportation.
Largest deportation program in American history.
Travel ban.
Muslim ban.
Confusion erupted at airports.
Clearing the streets of peaceful protesters.
This is now a political stunt.
The president saying, why don't we nuke them?
Floated the idea of buying Greenland.
Not ruling out military force to acquire Greenland.
30,000 separate lies.
Flushed printed pieces of paper down the toilet.
Lavish spending.
Ethics investigations.
Extortion.
Bribery.
Brazen influence peddling.
Threatened to withhold aid for California wildfires.
The president isn't leading.
Poor me.
The president caves.
Disclosed highly classified information to the Russian foreign minister.
Seeming to grovel in front of Vladimir Putin.
He was not the patriot he should have been.
Americans are dead because the president delayed.
Refused to act.
Ignored those warnings.
There's no vaccine that is safe and effective.
Go have a good time, Bobby.
No guardrails.
There are no independent agencies.
Surrounding himself with loyalists.
Answer to President Trump.
We're going to come after the people in the media.
They should go to jail.
We are watching an attempted sedition.
I am your retribution.
Stark reminder, folks. That's what we're in for. And am I the only one who actually watched the speech today?
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I
didn't watch it on TV, but I watched it on.
Right, but you saw it in real time though, just not on TV. Even though we all remember his first inauguration speech, the American Carnage part of it, They were very clever this time to try to say, he tried to claim that he's a unifier, that we're bringing the country together, that this is going to be they're ushering in the golden age. These are all, Julie, you know this, all very purposefully used phrases to try to mask and soften the actual things that they're trying to do, which is make this some kind of religious calling, like theocracy, this Christian nationalist populist undercurrent of Donald Trump's presidency, that is this chipping away at democratic norms and institutions under the guise of this calling from God. He said some pretty scary shit today during his speech again that I think that the media and others are downplaying to try to make it seem as though, this is a different tone from Donald Trump.
Yeah, let me tell you, I interviewed a filmmaker named John Long last week who produced a movie called Fight Like Hell, which is about the January 6th debacle. But the movie is actually a lot more than just that. It's about the movement leading up to January 6th.
It's a documentary, right?
Documentary.
Yeah.
And it's excellent. Strongly recommend if anybody wants to watch the interview, go to my YouTube channel, Salty Briefing, and take a look at it. But what's interesting about what he showed is that the rest of us, I think a lot of us, are sitting around going about our business. We've got kids, we've got pets, we've got husbands, wives, partner, whatever. We've got shit going on. These people, and by these people, I don't mean the crazies that showed up on January 6th, because those people were completely set up by the people who really masterminded this. You almost feel sorry for the people who showed up because they were so programmed to act like the savages they acted as. But I'm talking about like Ali Alexander and guys like that, people who were at the forefront of the Stop the Steal movement. They said consistently, and this is footage from before January, I mean, this is footage from even when the election first happened, that Donald Trump was going to be back in the White House. He was going to be back in the White House either on January 20th, 2021, or he was going to be back in the White House today, January 20th, 2025. But he was going to be back. They had no doubt. It was a religious calling.
Yep.
Jesus's name came up more than Donald Trump's did. Jesus wanted him back in the White House, and he was going to put him back in there, irrespective of what the voters wanted, irrespective of what our election system mandated.
He said it today. God saved me so I could make America great again.
And I think people on our side underestimate the planning and the conviction that goes into this movement. This is not a political movement. It's a religious movement, because political movements, look, I mean, there are people who love Barack Obama. They thought he walked on water. They got him elected. He served for 8 years, and now nobody really thinks about Barack Obama much anymore. This is not just a political movement. This is a movement from God in their minds. Mm-hmm. And Trump, who is the least religious person on the planet, but nevertheless knows exactly how to use this in order to get this done.
So a point, Julie, about that, just real quick, because you didn't watch. Oh, well, did you watched it on the New York Times? You saw that Trump didn't put his hand on the Bible.
I did. Of course. I mean, give me a break. I mean,
he didn't put his hand. For those who did not watch, Trump did not put his hand on the Bible during the swearing in today. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry, Julie.
Yeah, well, that's basically what I'm going to say. Is I think people really need to understand what's happening here.
Yeah,
because it's completely we need to understand where they come from in order to appreciate how to take them on. Because we're not going to take them on talking about tax policy. We're not going to take them on talking about, even abortion, things that matter, right? We're not going to take them on talking about immigration. This is a religious movement for them. And unless we come to it with the same fervor, I'm not suggesting that we all of a sudden become Christian nationalists, because that's never going to happen. But I'm saying if we don't come to it with the same fervor, the same planning, the same constant vigilance, and make this a 24/7, 365-day-a-week project, we're not going to have a democracy left in 4 years. And we're not going to win any elections in 2 years. I mean, it's kind of miracle that didn't pick up the House this time around. So that goes to show that we're not quite prepared to take them on again in 2 more years.
Yeah,
we need to get with it. As scary as that is, as exhausting as that is. And I know everybody's tired. I'm tired too. I was thinking, you were talking about what you think about in the shower. Actually, today I thought about in the shower that this is 30 years since I started working in Democratic politics. So like, I'm really tired.
Yes.
But I can tell you, like, we got to keep going. I wish I could ride off to the sunset. We got to keep going because we're not gonna stop until we get our country back.
Listen, the most committed wins. Yeah. And that is across the board. So they were more committed. While our side is still like figuring it out and pointing fingers and no. They are in lockstep, in unity, and fully committed. So either we are more committed and more disciplined and more unified, or they will continue to win. That's the decision. That is the decision that has to be made here. So go ahead, Joe. You started to say something.
I just think this other huge piece, right? Like that is a page out of the authoritarian playbook that we are all living every day is the patriarchy here, right? So yes, it's 100% this like Christian nationalist, this Christo-fascist, evangelical agenda that is like, that he was chosen by God. Like God left the building, okay? Trump is the embodiment of all the 7 deadly sins rolled into one. Like God's not a part of the conversation when it comes to Donald Trump.
And the God that I know and serve ain't pleased with this.
Okay?
Oh
no. And look, you can make arguments all day long that there's, right. Like you can make arguments all day long that if God has a message here, it is that we learn from this person, right? In some way, shape, or form, that we learn how to be stronger, grow stronger. How do we learn to fight it? How we learn to come through this dark time stronger and more resolute and more equitable and kinder and more empathetic and all of those things. But that patriarchy piece is so huge because we cannot forget this is a war on women. We have now elected a man who bragged about sexual abuse, doubled down on bragging about sexual abuse, was found liable of sexual abuse, and he's surrounded himself with a cabinet of men, let's just use that word loosely because I don't consider them to be the gold standard of what a man is, of more sexual abusers. Our Secretary of Defense could very likely, that person is a sexual abuser. God knows Elon Musk's track record is horrific. So he's surrounded himself with just more of that and more of this environment where women are relegated, subjugated, depressed, maligned, stripped of their rights to bodily autonomy. And that's very intentional. That patriarchal piece really works to their benefit because they know the power women have. Educated, involved, passionate, women who do not comply, which if you look around, the faces that are not complying are the women. The fellas are all bending over for that's right. Do not obey in advance. And here we are, women, a testament to that. But like, I mean, they're not playing. And if Project 2025, I know I keep mentioning this, but if those things really do go into effect, women need to wake up. Because,
it's not if, Joe. It's when. It's starting already. The executive orders are they're piling up. Yep. And he's already starting.
Again, white women, you need to wake up. Okay, think of all of this as a ballot measure you actually support. Okay, I wake up. And think about your country, think about your future, think about what women had to do to get you where you are, and then come together, cross the spectrum. Like you said, you don't have to do politics. Politics is going to do you. You have a choice. You're going to lay down and take it, or are you going to get up and say no? Like, that's the thing. That's the thing we have to remember that we can do. We can find
that's actually good. Michelle, do we have We Won't Go Back loaded?
Do we?
We should play that at some point because I think it's a good reminder.
I don't, but I'll load it in. Let me load it in.
Okay, yeah. We'll play because that's so true, Joe. And I'm glad you brought that up because for us as women, we started the Seneca Project because we felt that regular everyday women really didn't fully appreciate, again, what was at stake.
Yeah.
A lot of women who are paying attention were like, holy shit. But there were also a lot of women who were just living their lives, taking care of their kids, working, running their households. And they were just like, oh, it won't be that bad. It's never been that bad. And okay, people thought that for 40 years until 50 years until Roe was overturned. They thought that would never happen either. And that was kind of a smack in the face. And we were like, oh, shit, okay. But then they thought, all right, well, we voted for our ballot initiatives, or it's not going to happen in my state. Those are the crazy people in Texas and Idaho. No. Okay. The people, again, the most committed wins. That movement was committed for 5 decades, and they finally got the result they wanted. To Julie's point about a complete hostile takeover of the Supreme Court, That's something I can tell you as a Republican was one of the biggest issues that we would always, even at state and local levels, we would say, it's important to pay attention to the judiciary. We have to get our judges, because all those liberal judges and those circuits, we got to get rid of them. Who you vote into office matters for the judges, for the Senate race and for the president. They get to pick the judges. And it was like, oh, that was always, even at like school board race level, we would have people paying attention to the judiciary. So it can happen. And for women, we were like, we want to, that's why we call our show The Stakes. We wanted to explain and show women what was at stake. And unfortunately, there were a lot of women, I think, who bought into either Trump's bullshit, or they thought it can't happen to them, or they are in denial about it happening on a large scale. There wasn't enough suffering, apparently, for some of these women. But I often say that cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug. A lot of folks oftentimes vote against their own interests, and until they pay enough of a price, they won't change. And we all pay a price. Go ahead, Michelle. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say that we're victims of our own freedom. I mean, to an extent, because we don't know, especially some of the younger
white women are.
Well,
black women know.
Sorry.
They're like, don't blame
I meant
us.
these ladies. I meant ladies who might look like me. Because I mean, if you look at the down ballot and races and the ballot initiatives in some of these states like Arizona, who had abortion and reproductive rights on the ballot, they all passed.
Yeah, overwhelmingly.
In states where Trump,
Florida with a 60% threshold.
Right, which is ridiculous.
They rigged it.
Ron DeSantis is trying to get rid of that whole mechanism anyways. But because I don't think anyone really took seriously that Donald Trump is a pathological liar. And no, Donald Trump said that he's not going to sign a national abortion ban. So if I vote to enshrine my rights in my state, then I'll be fine. I will be protected. And I really think that that's how these people, or these women rather, were thinking about this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how naive, how completely stupid, I'm sorry, completely stupid are you to think at this point, after this many years, and I'm like, again, the New Jersey and New Yorkers on this show today, we know Donald Trump is a liar. We've been dealing with him for decades. He's been all up in our faces. What a slime bag he is. Now, the rest of the country obviously got an introduction to him about 10 years ago. So in either case, how are you not getting this yet? That's what I don't understand.
But here's a question for all of you. I have my theories, but I'd love to hear yours. Yes, New Jersey, New York knows Donald Trump more than anybody else. We know what a slime bag he is and have known it for 40 years. And yet no states in the nation moved more from Biden to Trump.
I know. Listen.
Now, I have my theory as to why. What do you guys think?
Including New Jersey.
No. New York was 1. New Jersey was 2.
Right. Our home
other states had a bigger swing. Biden 20 to Trump 24. So what do you guys make of this?
Well, I have my theories. Joe, you go first.
You know what? I've tried to figure this one out, right? Because whenever I leave my very red bubble, which is where I live, and the northwest corner of the state, and I travel to other very red bubbles of the state, like down the shore, I'm like, my God, it's everywhere. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's everywhere. And I go to the Asbury Park, I'm like, okay, whew, this is the blue place. There's one blue place, and my sister's in kind of in the Montclair area, and it's a little bit blue over there too. But I'm like, wow, this feels like a lot of the people in my state are really rabidly Trump supporters. And I've tried to figure it out too. And some part of me is like, there is this really strong push that they have done with Donald Trump, which is he's non-establishment. He's sticking it to the man. And people from Jersey are like, I'm independent. I say whatever I want. I don't have a filter.
Yeah.
You can't tell me what to do, what to think, how to be. But also there's a lot of my girlfriends, we'd be like, I know that eggs are expensive, pizza's expensive, all that stuff's expensive, but you guys are spending a lot of money on vacations and stuff. So it's not really that bad. But there's a power in this messaging of no, things are bad. And you're being forced to take it. And also they hate America. And also you know what I mean? All of that, I think somewhere in the independent Jersey New Yorker, he tells it like it is mind. They really have conflated like who he is versus who he says he is, because that messaging is so powerful, which is why we see split tickets with AOC and Donald Trump. It's like they tell it like it is. It's like, no, he's lying to you. But maybe, I don't know, because I wish I knew, but I can't figure out how anyone could vote for like literally a melted Oompa Loompa who's an incurious idiot. Like, how are you like a logical person looking at that going, yes, that guy, that's my guy. Like that guy who wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. That's my guy. I mean, that's my best speculation, because I don't know. I don't know.
What are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, I think part of it was just lack of turnout. I mean, I think that was part of it. I think if people showed up enthusiastically in these areas, I think it would be different. I mean, luckily, the island of Manhattan, I was looking at the New York Times precinct map the other day, and I was like, whew. But even the precinct that I live in, which was like, is very Democratic, obviously, instead of 90-10, it was like 80-20. And, you know, I think that some of this is like a cultural thing. I think it's I don't know, like this migrant thing, like this messaging that's going on that I don't, it doesn't really make any sense to me, but it permeates to some people. And I think, you know, people just get tired of the status quo, whatever that is, and they're told how bad it is, even though it's not. The thing that I don't understand too is like, you know, in 2020, I looked around my neighborhood. I live by a hospital. I live near a very large park in the middle of Manhattan. There were thousands of people dying in my city every single day. And we were left to die. That's what they said. Let the people in the blue states die. And at one point, New York City was the epicenter of a global pandemic. And
just wait, don't wash over that point, Michelle. I think it's important for people to remember, as LA is on fire, and people are, you know, thousands and thousands of people, not just the rich people, regular everyday folks, have lost everything.
Yes.
Donald Trump made a conscious decision multiple times during his presidency to punish where he thought were blue areas, using the power of the presidency and of the executive branch to withhold aid and resources to people who were suffering from either natural disasters or COVID because they did not vote for him.
Yep.
What the cruelty of that is pretty remarkable that people just cast that aside. Go ahead.
And no, it's just, you know, we all have collective amnesia. I think you know, it took a while for the city. I mean, Julie, you know, it took a while for the city to come back. It's still fighting for its identity, I think. And the fact that we have a very horrendous mayor right now is not helping either, especially one that wants a pardon for committing federal crimes. And I think that, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. But if I was a betting woman, I would say that this immigration raid plan in the coming weeks and months will be directed towards blue cities and blue states, not blue cities and red states. I would take a guess that Donald Trump will be a little bit, and ICE will be more lenient on red areas and farming communities, because they know that those are their you know, safe areas to hold on to power. And then they'll try to make an example out of us, like everybody else. I mean, even though, you know, we are cities and places. I mean, this country was built by immigrants, you know, not just in its entire history, but especially in the last 100 years. I have had 1 million restaurant jobs in this city. I have worked with all kinds of people from all kinds of places in the world. They're some of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. And the fact that they're going to be targeted and hunted by these people, quite frankly, makes me sick. And I hope that places like New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles will become safe havens, and that people, you know, individuals, not just governments, individuals will be the first line of defense against this really inhumane practice that's coming our way.
So I have like mixed feelings about all of it, because I worked on federal immigration reform when I was on Capitol Hill as a staffer. I was on, for those who are new and are just joining us, I worked for a congressman from California. Being from the North Jersey area, I too grew up around immigrants and didn't really think that the problem was as bad as it was not living in a border state. But then I learned about how broken our immigration system really is. And it is. It is completely broken. The problem here, and coming from a law enforcement background, I'm like, yeah, border security, we need to fix this. Our border patrol is overwhelmed and understaffed. There were a lot of policies that, like catch and release was terrible. Like, what are we doing? There were a lot of things that didn't make sense to me that we should have been fixing, because both sides had certain incentives not to fix it. And for different reasons, right? But then as time went on, and as someone who advocated for Border Patrol agents who were unjustly prosecuted for shooting an illegal alien drug smuggler, and they were facing 11 and 12 years in prison, and got a presidential commutation for them and got them out, and I'm very proud of that. I got to learn kind of the ins and outs of this, and I saw the humanity. There's another side of this. There is a humanity factor in the immigration debate that has gotten lost because of all of the other stuff that doesn't make sense, right? The criminals, the gangs, again, like catch and release, people taking advantage of the asylum system, people taking advantage. And it's not just the brown folks coming from Central America. People forget that 40% are visa overstays. Those aren't the people coming from Central America, okay? But nobody wants to talk about that because Trump recognized this undercurrent of racism and of xenophobia in this country and exploited that. Thanks to Fox News and Julie knows from being there for years how that it wasn't Julie's fault. She was trying to fight the good fight there.
I was the only one there who's trying
to fight the good fight. But Fox was part of that narrative. And now we've dehumanized people who are trying to come here. And then you see that there are problems with it. And it's like, there is nuance. This is not an easy fix. There's nuance, but that is gone because Donald Trump and the inhumanity and the cruelty is the point kind of tough guy, get these people out of here and they're taking our jobs and otherizing people has completely overtaken any common sense approaches to immigration. It's a multifaceted problem that's not going to be fixed overnight with just Gestapo raids of ICE. It's not. So this is a 35-year, 40-year problem that the country has let go this long, that Trump and Republicans have used to demagogue the issue. And now you have a lot of people who are taking the humanitarian side out of it. The first time people started to go, wait, maybe that's a little bit too much, was the kids in cages, right? Even then, people were like, "Oh, well, maybe we don't want that."
I'll tell you something about the kids in cages. You want to hear a crazy story?
Yeah.
So I remember doing a focus group of Latino voters right during the kids in cages period, right? And I was appalled. Like,
of which voters? You went out for a second.
Latino voters.
Latino voters,
right? Yeah. And I thought they would be as appalled as I am. And you had a whole chunk of Latino voters who were saying, if they don't want their kids in cages, they shouldn't come here illegally. At that point, I was like, something here.
Yes.
I love focus groups because they always, it doesn't matter what, they always shock me. But I mean, like, you have a strong undercurrent, which is why I think Trump did so well among Latinos, because you do have a strong undercurrent of Latinos saying we came here the right way and these people did not, and why did they get to cut in line? And which
I get. I personally get that. It's a strong argument. But it's how you do it. It's how you do it.
I have a different. Look, as I said, I'm an immigrant myself. I came here legally because at that point, the United States government was allowing Soviet Jewish refugees to come here, no questions asked. And I always thought it was an accident of birth that I'm allowed to come here, allowed to become an American, and they're not. And I live in New York now. I have actually at the end of my block a shelter for undocumented migrants, and it's women and children. And I look at these little kids and I look at these little boys who always look at me walking my son to school. And there's this one boy who I remember was looking at my son's Nikes very, very, very carefully. And I knew exactly what he was thinking, because that's the same look I would give kids when I was little who were American when I first got here, which is, oh my God, I would give $1 billion to be my son Zach, so that I could have these Nikes, but more importantly, to have the stability of going to school every day and not thinking about somebody yanking him away from his house, from his parents, from anything else. And so I see that, and it just, I guess I live that experience. But I will say to you, here's my theory as to why New York and New Jersey did well for Trump. I am of the very strong belief that if you are a legislative Democrat, if you are in the House or the Senate, you don't give them a vote for anything.
Mm-hmm.
They want to canonize the Pope. You don't give them a vote for that. Nothing. Nothing. They have the majority. They can do with it what they want. Become Mitch McConnell, who was the greatest leader in terms of political greatest leader of my lifetime.
Yep.
He obstructed, and now he's got a Supreme Court. And now Republicans control everything. And that is in large part due to Mitch McConnell. So if I were Democrats, I would stop with this bullshit that John Fetterman and others are doing right now, which is we can work with these people, Lake and Riley Act, which is the worst bill of all time. And actually think about the fact that if you want to be in the majority in 2 years, you gotta, they're in charge. I mean, they control everything. Let them do what they want. However, if I were a governor, it's the opposite. You got to deliver.
Yes.
Michelle, you touched on something that I think is absolutely true. We have a horrible mayor here, Eric Adams. I voted for him because the alternative was Curtis Lewa, who's nuts. But
I did not.
It was ranked choice voting, so I guess he was.
No, I know. But even on general election day, I walked in. I was like, I refuse. But
yeah, anyway, I did, and I remember walking out of there. My husband and I walked out of adjoining booths, and we looked at each other, and both of us said, "We think we just made a big mistake." But nevertheless, here we are. We have a governor, both in New York and in New Jersey, who I can't. If somebody gave me $1,000, I could not tell you what their accomplishments are, how they've actually delivered for people. And I think that's something that if you're an executive in Democratic states, it's all on you now. You've got to deliver. You got to put your name in everything. If there's a highway that's been, there are highways coming online right now, and bridges and tunnels that Joe Biden and the Democrats have built, which Donald Trump will take credit for because they'll be online in the next 4 years. If you are a governor in any Democratic state, you better slap your name on that project, on that road. And you better take credit for it in real tangible ways. Yeah. And I think the problem in New York and New Jersey is that you have Democratic governors who did not do anything that voters know about in real tangible ways. And maybe they have, and I just am not aware of it. But I think it's really important, and certainly the same goes for New York City with Eric Adams. That's why I think people go in the subways in New York and they get scared.
Right.
And people, walk down the street and they're uncomfortable with the homeless issue. Which, by the way, is a mental health crisis and not necessarily.
I don't know if you've noticed, Julie, like on the subway platform lately, people aren't standing near the edge anymore. They're standing all against. I mean, I never have because that shit scares me. But I've noticed because there have been some crimes of pushing people lately that everyone's against the wall now, and I'm like, well, yeah. But I mean that's part of it. That's part of it.
Can I just pick up on something, Julie, that you said real quick, because it just occurred to me too that it is so important, because I look around at some of the successful Democrats like Tom Suozzi in New York 3, and I say to myself, Tom Suozzi talks to people who live in his talk to his constituents in real terms about real things that are actually impacting them, whether or not that is popular with the big D Democratic Party messaging or not. What you can't just insert Democratic opinion here that is too spicy for the rest of the party because you're not supposed to talk about the border because we're Democrats and everything's fine. And it's like, well, sometimes actually living in reality, which is to your point again about the subways and about a lot of other things, that's actually a strength for you, because then the people listening to you go, oh, he sees what's actually happening here. Yeah. These things bother me and I feel crazy because no one else seems to be saying these things are a problem. But like, I'm standing all the way back by the wall, which I always did too, because I'm a freak. But yeah, but like I'm talking about the subway. I'm a Democrat, so I'm not supposed to talk about that. Like, as a social media person, I'm not supposed to talk about that stuff because it's like, oh no, that'll get you canceled. But we have some Democrats who out there get it and they win.
And you have, you're so right, because you have these bail reform laws in New York, and everybody's like, you can't talk about the bail reform laws. You might be racist.
too.
You might be racist if you talk about bail reform. And no, it's not a question of racism. It's a question of people feeling unsafe.
Right. It's common sense. It's common sense.
You're not racist if you don't want to get shoved into the subway by some guy that's out on bail for the 15th time.
Yep.
And or stabbed or whatever else is going on here.
That's exactly right.
And by the way, nobody talks about it, Joe, to your point, because people are so afraid of getting canceled.
I mean, that's got to end.
The first person who raises their hand and says, hey, I hear you, Michelle and Julie and Joe, when you ride the subways, I hear you that you're scared shitless of somebody shoving you onto the track. I have a 12-year-old who sometimes takes the subway by himself. Guess what he thinks about every day?
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things that you just don't. If somebody just acknowledged that maybe you're right to feel that way, that things are not just kumbaya and things are not just great. That's how Democrats need to start communicating.
And not use terms like, the unhoused or, these stupid terms, Latinx. We've talked about this,
right?
Like,
say it, but also don't like cancel people for not saying it. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. It's just like, okay.
There's no time for that. That doesn't that's not the real world. That's ivory tower, superfluous bullshit.
Well,
and it's like
signaling, right? It's the virtue signaling. Like I have no problem. I have no problem if you put she, her pronouns after your name. You know why I don't? Because if I address you incorrectly, just correct me. And if I'm not an asshole, I'm not going to repeat it, right? If I insist on calling you by the wrong pronoun, then you probably should stop speaking to me because I'm just
you probably are an asshole.
Yeah. And this is what Trump,
right? But I don't need to virtue signal that I'm with you.
And this is what Trump does. And this is he exploits this stuff. And and regular folks, and especially people in Jersey, part of my theory about why Jersey and New York, in addition to the all politics is local and personal, and if you don't feel it personally, then and someone makes you feel it, personalizes it for you, you're going to gravitate to that person. Trump was a genius doing that because he was beamed into, he's a TV reality con man. He knows how to produce good TV. And we are now living in the hellscape of the Donald Trump reality show, and everything is being produced that way. And people, unfortunately, the masses, the road to destruction is wide. And the masses are easily led astray by the shiny objects. And if you personalize it, and I am your retribution, I am your champion, they're coming after me because they're really coming after you. Like that stuff, the way he crafted that, he gave people a voice, and he gave the lowest common denominator part of us a voice. And in New York and New Jersey, I think there were a lot of people who, that's right, we don't take any shit. Okay, fine. But at the same time, there's a certain grievance. Like when people have grievances, Donald Trump is the grievance monger in chief. He gives anyone who has a grievance about anything. You could be mad about your Guatemalan gardener who, I don't know, did whatever. And then like your high school kid didn't get a job because of whatever. And now Donald Trump was like, that's right. Screw that guy. He shouldn't have been here in the first place. And your son deserves that. And blah, blah. And like, you're like, yeah, that's right. And he kind of gives energy to the lowest common denominator in all of us and the grievances. The people who are the most rabid Trump supporters, I guarantee you, they have a grievance in their life. They feel like they were a victim of something, or they're pissed off at someone or something for taking something from them, whether it was fair or not. And Donald Trump has given them license to wallow in that, and then empowered by it. Oh, that's right. You are a victim, and I'm going to make it right for you. That is how authoritarians gain power. I alone can fix it. Right?
Hitler after the Depression. I mean, he's like, we have someone to blame for your lack of money and wealth and comfort, and you're struggling, and here's to blame.
Yeah. And that resonated with people. Well, he might be an asshole, but he's my asshole. And it's like, that is a problem.
He's very good at the shiny object, as you said, right? So he's going to try to divert us with the Gulf of Mexico and trans issues and whatever else he's going to say. But I want to read this because I want people to mark it down, because today's the day Donald Trump got inaugurated. This is what he said on Meet the Press on December 8th, 2024 to Kristen Welker. And I want to actually read the quote, right? When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down. Now, mark this down. last Friday, the last full day of Joe Biden's term, the price of Honeycrisp apples, and I picked Honeycrisp because apparently it's the best-selling apple in the country.
And they're delicious.
I'm a Granny Smith girl myself. I don't know what you guys are thinking.
I
of
like them
Honeycrisp,
too.
but nevertheless,
There's a place
we are.
Honeycrisp apples per pound, $2.31. That was on January 17th, 2024. Bacon, sliced per pound, as of December 2024, last data that we have, $6.95, $6.91. And then eggs, grade A large per dozen, $4.15, December 2024. He's going to bring those prices way down. Now, we all know he's not going to do that because that's called deflation, and that's really bad for the economy. Plus, he's going to deport all the people working at meat processing plants and picking our apples and working at our dairy farms, and who are also consumers of all these products. And he's going to put tariffs on stuff. So I can't wait for him to bring those prices way down. It's mathematically impossible. However, I want people to remember this because that's what he says he won this election on, and he's not wrong. And all the other shiny object bullshit that he's going to try to distract us from, those are some hard numbers that I just read. He better bring those prices way down.
Yeah.
Well,
and he doesn't deserve to continue as president.
Exactly. And that's where Democrats should be constantly holding them to account. I would like to know how renaming the Gulf of Mexico is going to bring the prices of eggs down. I'd like to know how invading Greenland and Panama is going to bring the prices of things down. He'll argue that, I guess, getting the Panama Canal back is going to lower, costs or whatever. But good luck with that, okay?
Right. But the greatest con he ever pulled, the greatest con I think he ever pulled, was convincing the everyday, blue collar American worker, the everyman, that this was this silver spoon, son of nepotism, that
draft dodger.
Thank you very much. Draft dodger who got into college because he found someone else to take his SATs, which his own sister said is true. Unexceptional, utterly unexceptional human being who benefited from all of this failing upwards, right? How he convinced so many. And I think he did it on the back of racism, xenophobia, grievance. I mean, I think that it's really hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube when you're like, oh, you mean that everything that sucks about my life is someone else's fault?
Exactly.
And by the way,
complete opposite of what Republicans used to preach, by the way. It's why I became a conservative, is because I thought it was about individual responsibility, not blaming everybody else. And now look, go ahead.
Right. So you put that toothpaste back in the tube and you carry that on the back of like, oh, it's a whole lot easier just as like animalistic beings to hate someone for no rational reason and to put all of your own angst and anxiety and frustration and inadequacy into hating somebody else. It takes all of that off of your shoulder and out of your person. It flames out super fast, which is why we see these things like burning themselves out and they need a new enemy all the time. And that's why it was in trans people, which, by the way, 9 out of 10 of these people who are like, that's right, trans, I don't want them in my daughter's sports, have never met a trans person in their life.
No, or if they have, they don't know.
Right, it's eating the dogs, eating the cats. Does one person out there think that their immigrant neighbor is trying to eat their dog? But it works because it gives them a vehicle to carry all of their own forgiveness of their own inadequacies. And my God, is that the most American thing in the history of time, right?
Yep.
Does anybody know anybody who's has anybody ever met anybody who's aborted a baby after birth? I mean,
that happens all the time. So after I charge my car,
after birth abortions, like I really want to ask anybody who believes that shit. Have you ever met anybody who has had an abortion after birth?
It's called a school shooting.
Right? Yes, exactly. Thank you. It is called a school shooting or malnutrition because you won't give these people the tools they need to actually buy food.
Well, it's repetition creates reality, right? Yeah. Julie and I know as political operatives that perception, it's the first thing you learn in Politics 101 is that perception is reality for folks in politics, which is why messaging and getting to the hearts and minds of people makes a difference more than the facts on the ground. You know where I learned that? And also building relationship. I learned that my sophomore year at George Washington University when DC had a mayor's race. And I had a local politics class. And the mayoral race was between Carol Schwartz and Marion Barry. Marion Barry's first race after getting out of prison for going there for the bitch set me up and the crack stuff and all of that, right? Marion Barry bankrupted the city of Washington, D.C. Crime was through the roof. D.C. was a mess under Marion Barry's tenure. The mayor after him, Sharon Pratt Kelly, tried to clean it up, but there was too much going on. DC was in shambles in 1994. Well, Marion Barry decided to come back. And I was like, how is this possible? Yeah. The city's in shambles. It's bankrupt. The DC police department's in shambles. The school board's about to get taken over. The DC housing department's about to be taken over into federal receivership. Why would anybody ever reelect this guy to be mayor again? You know why? I learned from going door to door doing lit drops back in the day, where I used to actually talk to people and hand them literature about the candidate, where people said, oh, Marion Barry, listen, he's the people's mayor. He gave my kid a summer job. Oh, you know what? Marion Barry came to my uncle Jerome's funeral. Oh, Marion Barry, he helped get my mama a government job. Oh, well, listen, it happens. People, I've got my cousin and them slipped up with a woman and cracked. Like people made excuses because of the personal relationship he had and what he did for them. It didn't matter that the rest of the city was actually in shambles because of his terrible governing style, but people felt they got something from him. Same thing with Donald Trump and the stimulus checks. Donald Trump put his freaking name on the stimulus check.
That he had nothing to do with.
That he had nothing to do with.
Crazy.
Right? That he didn't even really want to do and had to be convinced to do because it was smart politics. But he put his name on it, to Julie's point. Every single infrastructure thing that they did, it was the Donald J. Trump bill of whatever the fuck. Okay?
Donald Trump would stick his name on a pile of dog shit if he thought it would get him a vote or a dollar.
Dog shit. Let me tell you something about this Gulf of Mexico thing, which again, if you live in New York, this is so obvious to you. This is typical Donald Trump.
Yes.
Sticking his name on stuff and taking credit for it.
Yes.
I remember when I first moved to New York about 20 years ago, my realtor wanted me to look at these apartments, which if you know New York, there are these high rises along the West Side Highway.
Riverside Boulevard.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't really want to. It wasn't really my neighborhood, but yada, yada. He insisted that I look at these apartments. They are like the worst. I'm sorry if anybody lives in those apartments. They're
not that nice.
Most shoddiest, awful construction of all time, which, by the way, Donald Trump had nothing to do with. He's not a builder.
Nope. Last thing he ever built was Trump Tower.
Right. Yep. He just leased his name to put on these towers.
Yep.
Which, by the way, now, when he became president, they actually voted to take.
Yeah, Keith Olbermann, I think, sold his condo in one of those buildings.
Yeah, I think right. But the bottom line is, this is what he does. He sticks his name on stuff that other people produce and takes credit for it.
Yep.
So when this infrastructure plan comes into effect and all of these jobs come online and all of these, it's going to be infrastructure week, finally, every week in the Trump White House, because he's going to take credit for every single thing. And
that Biden did.
That Biden did. If you remember, he told people to vote against it.
Yes.
Yes. And yet he's going to take credit for it. And so what I'm saying to my fellow Dems on the Hill is, do not allow him to do that by giving him your votes so that he can take credit for work that he's not doing. Yeah. Conversely, if you're a Democratic governor, take credit because it is your party that actually built this and not Donald Trump.
That's exactly right. And, you know, and that's why, like, for us, as we are approaching this, right? And we know all of this now. And now we've now inherited Donald Trump 2.0, who is unleashed. And we have to continue to inform people on how to stay focused on it, not to get distracted, but to focus on what's important to you and your community and hold your representatives accountable, because they do still work for us. We say this all the time because people are like, how do we fight back? What do we do? Like all of these norms and institutions that Trump is destroying. Like today, he took the decency that we're now losing, that Biden is gone. The decency is gone. We should demand it again. Don't just say, well, it doesn't matter. No, demand better. Don't just accept it. Demand better and call your Democratic representatives or call your Republican representatives or organize around it and demand better. They took the flags. Now they're back up, full staff, full mast, because it's supposed to be 30 days to honor Jimmy Carter. But Trump was like, no, I want them back. And he signed an executive order saying that they always have to be flying at full mast, full staff.
He's such a baby.
He's a child, right? It's crazy. So like all of these things.
The flag is up. Like, are you kidding me? Like, why?
I mean,
like,
it's small in the pants. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
just giving serious. Like, really, you need a big giant erection, like, to prove that you're a big man. You don't. Like, come on.
It's so unbelievable how fragile these guys are. But again, for us as women, we're like, nobody has time for that. Nobody has time for that. And that's why I always joke. I'm like, that's why God made sure women had babies, because we can multitask, have babies, and keep it all together. Men forget about it. We love our men, but women know how to get shit done. And that's why for us at Seneca, we're still marching forward. That's why what Joe and Julie are doing in their respective platforms, they're doing it. That's why we stay tuned, everyone. We may be joining forces for something. So make sure you like and subscribe to everyone's stuff, because we will be announcing that very soon. We've got to do this as collective voices to start arming people with how to fight this and to hold Democrats accountable and also the Republicans. But we've got to make sure that we are arming and informing people and inspiring people to keep the fight going. Because if we don't, we cannot rely on the mainstream media. If anybody was watching, they saw that the oligarchs of this country have all obeyed in advance, and they're all kissing Donald Trump's ass, and they were all sitting there with him in the background. The photograph, another one that sent me, was the photograph of Bezos, Elon Musk, Tim Cook, right?
With
all
their
the
wives, with
bros.
their wives. Members of Congress and other people in the government could not bring their spouses today, but the oligarchs got to bring theirs.
Hashtag priorities.
Right. And I'm sorry, but Lauren Sanchez isn't even Jeff Bezos' wife, right? They're not married yet, are they?
Yeah, they haven't had their $600 million wedding or whatever it is they're going to do.
I think that's a point that we need to drive home, right? You had a bunch of people who, let me back up. I went to Rolling Stones concert about 10, 15 years ago. And somebody gave me tickets to it. But there were people there who saved like their entire year's salary to go to Giant Stadium, whatever it's called now, to go see the Rolling Stones.
It'll always be Giant Stadium.
Giant Stadium.
It'll always be that to me. Whatever MetLife, I think, whatever it's called now. And they effectively, these people saved up for like a year because their tickets were really expensive. And the Rolling Stones put on a really bad show insofar as they played for their allotted period of time. And then as soon as the clock struck, whatever, they like mid-song basically got off. And I was really pissed off. And I was like, you know what? These people have worked their asses off to come see you, Mick Jagger. Like maybe you could just give them the show that they deserve. So now that I'm comparing Donald Trump to Mick Jagger whatsoever, but I had the same feeling here. You had these MAGA people saving up. And if any MAGA people happen to be watching, listen to me. You saved up for, I don't know how long, to go to DC, go on the National Mall to watch Donald Trump get sworn in as president. You had the expense of getting a car or a plane or a train or a bus or however you got to DC, rented hotel rooms, which are really jacked up because of the inauguration. And all of a sudden, a few days earlier, he said, no way. Not only that, he took the Jumbotrons off the mall to discourage you from gathering in community with your own fellow Republicans or MAGA people or whoever you call yourselves. But he let Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos' fiance, who had quite an interesting outfit on today.
Yeah, totally inappropriate.
And
outfit, yeah.
You know, and all these other people who he was demonizing. You remember, he wanted to imprison Mark Zuckerberg. He riled you guys up to imprison Mark Zuckerberg 2 months ago. They get a front row seat. His own cabinet has to sit in the back. And meanwhile, you, the working person, got screwed. That's who Donald Trump is.
Oh yeah.
And
that's it.
And on that note too, I don't know if you saw that there was a huge gathering of very enthusiastic Trump supporters, I think at one of the arenas in DC to watch.
Yeah, Capital One. The arena.
So I was watching a clip right before we came on. They were showing the procession into the Capitol Rotunda, but you could hear the cheering and the boos from Donald Trump's crowd in the arena. And I would just like to play a very short clip of the Democrats and Mike Pence walking into the rotunda. Now, I wasn't watching the other footage, so I don't think that this is what was going on in the rotunda, the booing and whatnot. But hearing the vicious roar of booing from his people sent a chill down my spine. And I don't know if you guys seen this, but I'd like to just show it really quick. Hold on. I'm loading it right now.
We have to be civil.
You have former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and obviously former President Bill Clinton as well. The crowd here is getting a little more raucous as it's filling out. About 20,000 inside of the Capitol real time, and how sort of MAGA world is watching. Big boos right now, as you can imagine. I don't know if you guys can hear it over my mic, but
boy, is that striking.
Former President Obama, former President Obama getting a resounding, as we would say in New York, a Bronx cheer here.
I have to wonder if this is setting the tone.
But look, these are the loyal supporters. Yeah.
Today.
Yeah, Lester, I think you're right.
So yeah.
So you know what? I'm glad you showed that, because this goes back to the whole thing that I have felt that it's been very frustrating for me. As someone who is an institutionalist, I've struggled with how many of the institutions we should make sure we don't let them ruin forever, and where we should finally be like, enough is enough. And if I had been a member of Congress or a head of state or whatever, I would not have attended the inauguration today. I would not, because I have been very clear about how I feel about Donald Trump. We all have here. And we cannot sit there and say that MAGA and Donald Trump is fascism, authoritarianism, that he rivals Hitler in his tactics and all of this and his attitude, and then turn around and be like, welcome home. I feel joy today, which is what Joe Biden said. And I love Joe Biden, but I think that he was overcompensating for trying to say, like, we're going to respect the institution and the peaceful transfer of power. There is a balance here, because by taking the high road here, for a lot of folks, and I know they were well-intentioned for the Democrats who did go, they were trying to take the high road. But unfortunately, what that's doing, because to Michael Steele's point last week, civility is a two-way street.
Yeah.
And that is not civil, okay? Freaking Donald Trump posting an eviction notice and a senior living thing on his Truth Social last night about Joe Biden getting out of the White House. That's not civil. It's low class. And it's disrespectful. They have no respect for our institutions. So being civil doesn't mean you have to be complicit, because that's what they're getting. They're being normalized. Donald Trump and what MAGA's doing, and what the freaking Nazi / kind of rallies that they do, the stuff that they say, this is authoritarian ilk that is antithetical to what we believe as Americans and the good and decent part of who we are as Americans. He's chipping away at that, because you can't be civil if it's not civil on the other side. So, and you didn't have to, but that's why it's the other thing. And then I'll sorry, Michelle.
No. Sorry.
Like Obama yucking it up with Trump at the Carter funeral. People looked at that and went, well, he must not be that bad. Obama was over there cracking jokes with him.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Trump, Michelle's not there today.
Right. Michelle's not there. Nancy Pelosi's not there. AOC's not there. There's a lot of folks.
I have a clip. I don't know if you've seen this. Hold on one second. Let me open
there's a lot of folks not there. And I'm glad you showed the juxtaposition of what it looked like before. But go ahead.
All these journalists are like, Congresswoman, are you going to the inauguration? Congresswoman, are you going to the inauguration? Are you going to the inauguration? Let me make myself clear. I don't celebrate rapists. So no, I'm not going to the inauguration tomorrow.
I mean, is she wrong?
No.
Is she wrong? I mean, Nelly said, I was on MSNBC last night talking about Snoop and Nelly and those guys who I'm just like, whatever, that you guys are a bunch of freaking hypocrites. But Nelly said it was an honor. It's an honor. I'm sorry, an honor. It is not an honor.
No.
Okay, would you say it was an honor to perform at Hitler's inauguration? No, because that's how we categorize this. Now, I understand that there's this tension between, yes, but you're honoring the peaceful transfer of power and you're honoring the fact that these are our traditions. And it's like, there is a very thin line here. You can't say that you don't endorse Donald Trump and MAGA when you say that it's an honor. I don't know. I mean, some people don't have a choice, like our military or Secret Service, like that's different. That's different.
Sorry, you're right, 1,000% right. Like that is again what we talked about earlier, like complying and obeying in advance, all that stuff. Like just like putting me in front of America and the rest of the country because your immediate needs are definitely much alleviated by playing nice. But like you don't play nice just to play. You don't go along to get along when you're talking about a fascist who would strip you and all of your friends of all the fundamental human rights. By the way, when we're talking about deportation, they're not really going to check to make sure your papers are in order in every case. Like a lot of people are going to be like, wait, but I voted for you. I don't care. But I want to really fast just because, Michelle, like your clip, I hadn't seen that because I didn't watch it this morning. And the viciousness of that, right? That the mob-like mentality that we've seen on full display, not just on January 6th, but I saw people doing that this time around when they were trying to fence them in and pen them in to get them to line up to be, human beings, not like mindless lemmings who are just like brains, right? So they're doing it again. But like that vicious mentality where you get them to boo with such vitriol, right? That kind of mindset, we have to just take a moment and reflect on the fact that we woke up this morning to President Biden preemptively pardoning the police officers who defended that rotunda right there.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
Right. The person who was sworn in today without putting his hand on the Bible. So the person responsible for the image on the left, he is promising to pardon those people, Mr. Back the Blue, right? All you Republicans out there who voted for Trump, who backed the blue, you're going to pardon those people while Joe Biden had to protect our Capitol police officers who got beaten with their own shields and sprayed with chemicals, and many of them have taken their own lives. He is promising to pardon them. And they won't put up the plaques. They won't. I mean, I was with Harry Dunn the other night. Harry Dunn had to get a pardon today. Liz Cheney had to get a pardon. Mark Milley had to get a pardon. Anthony Fauci had to get a pardon. The upside down viciousness, but that's why Biden had to do it. And I cannot believe we live in this reality. But that mob mentality where they're booing Obama like he's our enemy, where they want to hang Mike Pence.
Right. And Mike Pence goes.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right. Like I can't.
I mean, Mother was right. I mean,
I know. I never thought I'd give Mother props.
I can't believe I'm giving Mother credit. Right. Mother kind of, and to me, AOC's kind of right. It's like, I'm not going to go celebrate a rapist. Okay, fine. Actually, it's bigger than that. I'm not going to celebrate somebody who tried to overthrow the peaceful transfer of power.
Exactly.
That's what it is. And
exactly.
Listen, George Bush has a lot of blood in his hands. And I don't think he was a successful president. I truly think he was one of the most disastrous presidents. Before Trump, I would say he's probably the most disastrous president of my lifetime. Mm-hmm. But I would go to in a heartbeat, I would go to his inauguration. Because I believe that, yes, you have to respect the office of the president, even if you don't like or respect the person occupying it. But not when that president does not respect the Constitution, does not respect the office of the president and our government. That's the difference.
And actively tried to undermine our peaceful transfer of power, actively did not participate. And guess what? Probably won't do it if the Democrats win in 2028. They're not going to do it. So like, why are we? That's exactly. And that was left out of a lot of the conversation, which was just infuriating because they don't put it in context. It applies to everybody else, but not Donald Trump and MAGA. That's ridiculous. But that's the media that's scared to death of what Trump is claiming he's going to try to do to the media, right? Take out the media. Kash Patel, the FBI director nominee, who should absolutely not be confirmed because, we're going to take out the media. They're enemies of the people. It's a chilling effect. It's already having a chilling effect. Just look at the coverage. I want to say something about the pardons real quick. And
then I need to show something that just happened, by the way.
What is
if you don't mind me just cutting in here.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mallory just sent this. I just clipped it and loaded it in. Guys, Elon Musk just gave the Hitler salute.
Excuse me?
No.
What?
No. Please tell me
that
didn't happen.
What? Oh,
This just happened.
where is that?
Is that at the Capital One Arena thing? Or where is this? Where did he just speak?
I don't know exactly. Midas Touch posted it. Mallory, if you know, if you can find out where he did that, or Emily, if you want to post that in the chat with us so that we know. But that just happened. They're
going to say that that's not what he meant. They're going to try to gaslight us.
Oh, of course, of course.
This is a man who is supporting a neo-Nazi party in Germany.
Yes.
I want everybody to be very clear on that who's watching this.
Yep.
This is not a one-off. This is somebody who's supporting somebody, a party that is so right-wing that they are the direct descendants of the National Socialist Party from 1945.
In Germany. It's very important. That's right, Julie. Yes. And this is someone who grew up in apartheid in South Africa supporting it.
Let's talk about the South African apartheid billionaire complex, right? I mean, because we're talking about the guy who owns the LA Times. We're talking about Peter Thiel, who grew up in South Africa. Elon Musk. I think there's a fourth one who I can't remember. But these are all people from
Ackerman, one of them.
Sachs.
Yes, who grew up in apartheid South Africa, who are now not only billionaires, but having a direct influence on the flow of information in the United States of America.
Okay, again, this is such a huge failure on the part of our American mainstream media for not pointing out who else. When you vote for Donald Trump, you're not just voting for him. You're voting for the circus of awful people. I call them the cacophony of kooks around him, but the awful people around him that are now empowered. Elon Musk is asked. There was another story this morning that he's begging for an office inside the West Wing.
I think he's going to get it.
Isn't he? He probably will.
I mean, he bought an office in the West Wing.
Good point, Jojo. Exactly. That these guys are buying their way. Like, last night again on Jonathan Capehart's show, I was, usually by Sunday night after all the stuff that's going on, I've had it and I don't care. And so between the Nazi reference about Hitler, would you go to his inauguration? I also said, he asked, did Donald Trump break the billionaires? Because that's what they're trying to do, right? Oh, he broke the billionaires. I said, no, he didn't.
They own him.
Actually, that's right. They own him. I said, do you think Elon Musk is doing this out of the goodness of his heart? They own him and he knows it. This is purely transactional. And to Julie's point earlier about we need to continue to show these MAGAs, and not only the MAGAs, because some of them it's a cult and they're so far gone, they're never going to, they might revolt within themselves. That's all the Steve Bannon thing that's going on, which is interesting.
And Laura Loomer,
right. Like those people know that the oligarchs coming in actually hurts their movement. So they're like, wait a minute, they're going after them. So that's going to be an internecine warfare that we should pay attention to.
Does anybody know where Bannon and Loomer, if they were in the Capitol, where they were seated in relation to the oligarchs? Because that would be very interesting to me.
Well, the fact that we didn't see them in the shot, Julie, shows us that they weren't.
No, right?
They weren't seated because you would see. Was Bannon even inside the Capitol?
I don't know. Was Bannon show up? I don't know.
Was Laura Loomer even there, or were they relegated to the cheap seats somewhere else in like the Capitol Visitor Center? It's all very interesting, like those dynamics, because I think you're going to start to see some fractures within the MAGA movement themselves. And frankly, let them fight.
It's already happening.
Yeah, let them fight. I don't give a fuck.
And there might still. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, go ahead.
There might still be within that party, right? There might still be those people who are reachable on this. They remember the greatest generation, right? They remember. Well, we had a conversation offline the other day about this very thing. It's very personal. Obviously.
Michelle says it all the time.
I mean, Michelle, I'll let you know. Obviously, I'll let you tell your story. I just think it's so important because we can't forget. And what I kept thinking was all those men and boys who didn't come home fighting this fight, right? And what we've said for since I was born, since I was a baby, we've said that we lift those heroes up for what they did for this world, for this country. And Michelle, I know that's incredibly personal for you, but seeing that, I don't know if I want to throw up or cry. But Michelle, I mean, I don't know if you just want to take a second because it's like I'm a mess just inside right now. Seeing that.
Sorry, I'm pulling the clip right now of the whole clip of him doing it, just with context, which by the way, they're already pushing back on, saying, no, he says, my heart goes out to you. That's what he's.
Well,
was
guess
saying.
what? Your heart doesn't do a Hitler salute.
No,
no. Exactly.
If your heart's doing that,
your heart is. Your heart's not over here.
Your heart goes like you go like this. You don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he choreographed this out ahead of time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not is whatever.
It's a dog whistle. Listen, it's a dog whistle to the people who need to hear it, and for everybody else, his heart goes out. Right? They know exactly what they're doing.
Exactly.
And I keep saying this again. We all have to, Democrats, wake up. Because
wake up. Wake up.
This is what we're up against while we're sitting here tweeting out policy papers and speaking to Meet the Press and thinking we're reaching people this way. They've been organized for a really long time. And I will say, Michelle, while you're pulling up that clip.
Yep.
Tara, you and I have talked about this before. Roe versus Wade, and I just want to take a moment to say that Cecile Richards, I don't know if people know, passed away today.
Yes.
The head of Planned Parenthood, who did more to preserve women's health care than anybody else, or one of the people who did more to preserve women's health care than anybody else in this country for generations. And so very sad about that, but also kind of poetic justice that she passed away today as this country is going to hell in a handbasket. But I want to add that Roe versus Wade was overturned in 1973. And since it got overturned, the evangelical movement started plotting. And it turned into the Federalist Society, which Tara, you said so well, started putting justices on the Supreme Court, but also starting to put judges into every branch of the judiciary, from the local to the state to the federal. And about 20 years ago, 3/4 or 2/3, I forgot the number, of all judges in this country were Democrats. Now it's much fewer than half. In 1978, I believe, Pierre DuPont, otherwise known as Pete DuPont of Delaware, started GOPAC, which was taken off, but then by Newt Gingrich and then our friend Michael Steele.
I was a trainer for GOPAC. That's why I know it. That's why I know the tactics. I taught this.
Yep. GOPAC created a whole farm team of state legislators who took over state houses and then went on to take over Congress. And these organizations exist. And as I've said, I've worked in Democratic politics for 30 years. We do not have a Federalist Society. We have something like it. Believe me, it is not even I don't even know the name of it. It's so ineffective compared to what Republicans have done. We, I think, have some sort of GOPAC type structure. It's a joke.
Yep.
And we don't have these kinds of things. We think we have a media that's going to both sides this to death, and we'll get our 5 seconds in while the other crazies get their 5 seconds in. I mean, if Kamala Harris or Joe Biden were smart, they would have sat with Joe. They would have sat with JoJo from Jurors as opposed to spending time talking to Meet the Press or George Stephanopoulos. God bless them.
Right.
It's not as effective.
That's right.
And so the reality is that this is what we are up against, and we have to build it. And it cannot be built in DC, and it cannot be built in New York City at CNN or MSNBC or out in Hollywood, because those people are gone to us.
Yep.
Gone.
Yeah, it's going to be a citizen-led movement. I've been, thanks to Senator Boxer, and she's on our advisory board, and we love her. And, someone else who I've learned to appreciate, given her what a trailblazer she is and her wisdom and what she has done. Like, we were on very opposite sides back in the day when I was in the dark side, but I was there with good intentions, everyone. But, she said, she posted a quote from Robert Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, the original, the OG, that says tiny ripples of not the crazy sun. Tiny ripples of hope create a current strong enough to take down mountains of opposition. It creates that current. Tiny ripples. That's each and every one of us. This is going to be a citizen-led movement. The abolitionist movement, the suffragist movement, the civil rights movement. It was all citizen-led. It was the righteous anger of the American people that said enough is enough and came together. And it didn't happen overnight. It took building these movements, and they took losses. They didn't win everything until they did.
Yeah.
But that's what we've overcome these things in the past, and we can do it again. Michelle talks about how our great-grandfathers and our grandfathers in the greatest generation crossed oceans and continents to fight for democracy in other lands and shed blood for it. Nobody's asking us to physically do that.
as children.
That's right. My grandfather went at 17 years old. He
17.
lied about his age, and he went and fought in World War II at 17. My German great-grandparents came through Ellis Island here as German Jews, which I didn't know till my grandfather was 88, by the way, to escape what the Nazis were starting to do in Germany in the 1920s. So, like, we all have these stories. Julie's family came here to escape the authoritarianism of Soviet Russia. You know, I mean, Joe, your family, you have Middle Eastern roots, right?
Yeah, my dad came here as an immigrant when he was 17.
We all have this. Michelle's family goes back to the revolution. So
yeah,
we
my
all have
family's been fighting in American wars since like 1776, which is like kind of overwhelming to think about. As much as I have immigrants in my family too, but you know, Anna, who is on our ad team, she's like one of the coordinating producers on our main ad team. She is the granddaughter and great-granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. She spends a lot of her time in the tri-state area as part of the 3GNY. It's a third generation of Holocaust survivors, and going to schools, public schools around the area, and telling the story of her grandparents. And like, you know, she tells the kids there is no question that is off limits. You can ask me anything. She said, because the last survivors of that struggle, not just the Holocaust, but the war, that entire period in our history, they're all gone. And they're leaving us. There's very few of them left to tell the firsthand account of what this was like. And after they're gone and the humanity of that story is gone, then it's just a page on a history book. And then we can no longer, as human beings, connect with it on a visceral and personal level. And so that's why it's just so important that we continue to tell these stories, not just people like Anna, who's obviously has this harrowing story of survival, but of our grandparents or our parents coming from other places or crossing oceans to fight against fascism. I mean, it's Julie and I talked about this the other day. You know, last year you were in Normandy. In October of 2023, I visited Normandy in Omaha Beach for the first time. I walked through the cemetery at Normandy, through the thousands of graves of American soldiers who stormed those beaches and didn't come home so that we could do this.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Are you kidding me? So I'm going to show this clip of Elon Musk and his little nepo ass giving a salute. Hold on, let me just. I didn't want to load it right away because it would have played it immediately. Let me see. Is this it? Okay, this is it. Because I'm just.
Thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
Yeah, no, sorry.
No, get the fuck out of here.
Nope.
Did any of them do it? I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, well, you know it's coming.
Remember when they were doing that with their?
Is
What were they doing?
Come on, he did that with. He even had a grunt that went along with it. That was on purpose. That was on purpose because these people all feel as though that they are back in charge. When they say make America great again, they're talking about white men ruling everything. Women sit down and shut up. Because if you look at our comments on Twitter and other places where the right wingers are, it's all shut up, know your place. Stop
I've already
talking.
had to block a bunch of assholes in our comments.
Daddy's home. Daddy's home. What is this? What is this? So this is what we're up against, people. Because I say no. Oh, shut up, make me. Okay. No, and no. And I think that it's important that it's not going to be easy. Guys, it's not going to be easy. This is what we're up against. But we've done it, but we have fought back evil forces in the past in this country. We're in a little bit of a different, this is uncharted, but we've done hard things before. We
might be out-dollared, but they're outnumbered by like billions of people around the world.
Yes.
And what they're doing is not sustainable. What they're building on is not sustainable, right? First of all, it's immoral, right? So that's actually, believe it or not, I do still have faith in the morality of core of this country. I know that sounds naive, but at the end of the day, I do think there is still a good thread in all of us, right?
Yes.
But we also have right, we have justice, we have facts, we have science, we have truth, actual truth on our side, and righteousness. And I think that those things they last longer in theory as pillars than these things that are based on hate and vitriol. And look, I mean, they killed their own supporters with COVID because they convinced them that the vaccines were dangerous, right? So they killed their own. I mean, they literally kill off their own numbers. But it's going to be a battle. It's going to be hard.
And they'll do it again. And they'll do it again because they don't care. And they don't care about them. And, you know, it's the Sojourner Truth said that I will not allow my life's light to be determined by the darkness around me. That is what I look at. That's what I hope that we project for Seneca Project, what we're doing as collectively as women. And those of us, I hate the word resistance, but just for all intents and purposes right now, but that's what the resistance is doing. We have to be the light in the darkness. We can't let them extinguish it because that's what they want to do to us. They want to demoralize us. They want us to disengage so that they don't have any opposition. And we can't. Just like in Germany, World War II, after that, the Eastern Europe and the fascism that rose out of that and authoritarianism, there were still people that were fighting for it. And eventually the Berlin Wall fell and communism fell, and they're trying to reconstitute. But we have to be the light in the darkness. We have to, because light will always win.
And if you know your history, which I think we all do, what happened in forget Germany. I can speak from personal experience, right? Because my grandparents, who I was very close to, lived through Stalin. Mm. And nowhere am I implying that we're at the Stalin level now, but this is how things begin, right?
It's how it starts. There's a lot of parallels.
Bit by bit by bit by bit. You normalize the unacceptable until you don't, it's like boiling a lobster, right? Just turn up the heat a little more and a little more. And a little more. And I can tell you that it's because of two things that he was allowed to do this. One was just people accepting it because this is just the way it is. And they got tired, and there was, revolution, and there was World War I. And then they were so exhausted into submission. And two was fear.
Yes.
People were supposed to turn on each other. People were supposed to denounce each other. People were supposed to, children denounce parents. Mm-hmm. There was I grew up in the Soviet Union for a little period of time. Even in kindergarten, we were taught about this little kid who was this hero. I don't know if it was apocryphal or not, who turned his parents in to the authorities. The parents got killed, and the kid was lauded as a hero. And then the neighbors killed the kid, and the kid was basically a martyr because he died for doing the right thing, which is turning his parents in for, I think, hoarding food, literally. So I say this
kind of like the Texas abortion law, where it's like they want you to spy on your name.
Exactly, like your Uber driver is supposed to turn you in if he drops you off in front of the abortion. Right. So I only bring this up not because I'm making any parallels between what's happening now in 1920s, 1930s Soviet Union, or Hitler's Germany. But I say this because it is when good people. It's that Hannah Arendt quote. This happens when good people do nothing.
Right. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to happen here. So I want to reiterate what we started off with, which is I get that everybody's exhausted. I get it. That's what they're trying to do. Bannon talks about it all the time. Flood the zone, flood the zone. They're flooding the zone with bullshit to exhaust us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We cannot be exhausted. I get it. Not everybody's built to stress about this. I haven't, my husband said to me this morning, maybe now that Trump is inaugurated, you can finally sleep, because I truly have not had one good night's sleep since November 5th because I've been so stressed.
Yeah.
I hope so. But the reality is I get that not everybody wants to be an insomniac like me because they're just so upset about this. But we can't, if you love this country, if you love your kids and you want them to grow up in the country that we all grew up in, we can't afford to be complacent. We just can't, no matter how exhausting it is.
And if we all do a little, then no one has to do it all.
Right? That's right. That's the tiny ripples, right? Yes. Tiny ripples create a current. That's each and every one of us doing our part, whether it's at the local level and you just start to get your neighbors involved, or you start a book club where you start learning about democracy and freedom and learning history. So you recognize when you see these things, whoa, wait a minute. And then how people were able to build movements to overcome them, whether it's to decide to run for a local office or a state office, whether it's you have the financial means to support candidates or organizations like ours or whatever, so that people can do that work, whether it's just inform people. If you take people to the polls, it's just all of these little things matter. Whether you start a campaign on social media or get your friends to call offices, state, local, and federal levels to let those people who are elected officials who work for us, let them know you're paying attention. They will respond. So like these are all little things that we can do that create movements. It starts with individuals. We can build movements, and we cannot let the lies and the conspiracy theories shadow the truth. We can't. One of the quotes I always put on my emails, I've had it for many, many years and never thought it would be this. It's attributed to Orwell, but we're not sure if he actually said it. But in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Voltaire also said that if you get people to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities. And that's what's happening. People are believing this absurd bullshit on the MAGA side, which desensitizes them to commit atrocities and just making excuses for a fucking Hitler salute at an inauguration event in America in 2025. Holy shit, folks.
And I just want to address really quick, because we get this a lot in our comments. People say, why would you play that? Why are you showing that to us? I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear his voice.
No, it's reality.
I get it, but like we have to bear witness. We have to watch some of it. I didn't watch the inauguration today. I have no interest in doing that. However, I do need to know what's going on.
Well, we did it for you, right? Like that's like we tag each other in. We tag each other in.
Right. And it's like, I get it, but it's, don't kill the messenger here. like we're just trying to make sure that everybody's in the loop, right?
Well, also live, as I kept saying earlier, you can't hide from this. You live in this country. You live in this world.
Right.
He's, whether you like it or not, he's here.
That's right. And that's part of why, like for us as for Seneca, that we've been recalibrating, right? We've taken the last 2 months to look at what we're facing, look at the landscape. We needed to get a sense of where the Democratic establishment was going and what they were doing to see like, okay, where can we fill in the gaps and we've realized that we can't operate there because we're not part of that establishment.
Right.
We're not. We come from we are a grassroots. Yeah, I don't want to be a part of that. Okay. Because God bless my friends who are, and somebody needs to help fix that. We're not it's not our job to fix them. They've got to fix their own. We can only present what we think and give our opinions and help galvanize people behind a movement that's going to get things done, that's not going to get bogged down by the bureaucracy and the internal politics of the party fixing itself. I left the Republican Party because I decided it can't be fixed from within. It needs to burn to the ground. If there's a right of center movement that emerges from the ashes, I'll be the first one to sign up. But them days is over for me. It's about organizing people and trying to help our political establishment get their heads out of their asses and actually win elections. And so, I know a lot of people ask, like, well, what are our marching orders? What are we doing?
Right.
We're still formulating the exact plan, because there will be calls to action of specific things to do, particularly in places like Virginia and New Jersey, where it's election related, because Virginia and New Jersey have elections this year. There's governor's elections, there's state and local elections there. That matters. It matters. Just ask the folks that are in states that now have abortion bans, okay? State and local elections matter. So we will be getting involved in those elections, in those places, and telling people specifically what to do. There's also going to be, there's other things, like we're a small organization. We just started 7 months ago, right? So we are building coalitions. We're in the building phase now. And as we build that, we have to arm ourselves. We have to have a war chest. You have to have resources to be able to deploy the troops. You have to have rations stored up in order to use them when you need to. So this is, as we're kind of building the plane as we're flying it, because they never stop. Like I said, the other side never stops. So as we're doing that, it's important to build alliances, to build people up, to start getting people ready, so that they don't have to, be ready so they don't have to get ready. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. But some people need to get ready. So we're going to teach people how to do that. And a lot of it starts with our content, informing people That way you can inform others, right? I mean, Thomas Jefferson said that an uninformed citizenry is like sending lambs to the slaughter, to the wolves, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure we are informed so that we can tell others and we can point out the hypocrisy. And that's part of what we do as a content organization, to be able to arm people with the hearts and minds stuff, because you can't change hearts and minds and behavior unless you start here. You got to start with the hearts and minds. And that's what we are doing. That's what Julie's doing. That's what JoJo is doing, by all of us coming together and pooling our resources, our experience, our knowledge of politics, our knowledge of policy, right? We all bring different experiences to the table, and collectively together, we're a powerful team. And this is how it starts. You build these coalitions, and every one of us connects to people in different ways. We all bring something to the table, and so can average everyday Americans. Mm-hmm. That's the only way we're going to do this. Yep. It's the only way. Do we have We Won't Go Back? I think we should play it.
Yeah, let's do it. Here we go.
In July 1848, courageous women came together in Seneca Falls, New York, to start a movement. They dared to fight against treatment as second-class citizens. After decades of struggle, women fought and won the right to vote, to work without discrimination, to control our bodies, to even open bank accounts without the permission of a man. Each one was a triumph against those who believed we didn't deserve them. Well, today, those hard-fought victories are under attack. Donald Trump and his allies are determined to send us back to a time when we had no say, no freedom, no choice.
I got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Do we want a future where our daughters have fewer rights than our grandmothers? Where their bodies are state property? Their voices silenced? Their opportunities erased? We say hell no. We won't go back. This November, we must take back what is ours, for ourselves, for our daughters, and for the pioneers of Seneca Falls. It's up to us.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? There has to be some form of punishment.
Now, yes, that was for the election, but everything applies still.
I hadn't seen that in a long time.
I know. Thank you to Alex Borstein, who voiced that for us. And you know, we put that out over the summer, but it still applies, because actually in November, there are elections going on, just not a presidential one. But there's always an election happening. There are special elections coming up. If you live in upstate New York, there's a special election to replace Elise Stefanik. You know, all of these Republicans who are in the administration now, there are elections that are going to happen there. There's always something going on somewhere for something. So we have to make sure that we don't go back anymore. We've taken some steps back, unfortunately, with the election of Donald Trump, but we don't have to take it. We don't have to take it. We don't have to take it. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been with us for the last 2 hours. This has gone it has gone so quickly. I can't believe that we've been on for 2 hours. Thank you to everyone who has donated to us on this. That is incredibly humbling for us. It's important. We appreciate you. Thank you. Keep it coming. The more we have, the more we can do.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I do want to say that as much as, you know, we are investing in content and messaging, we're also investing in the means and mechanisms to make sure that people see it, because I think that those two things are very, very important, that they go in hand. So, yes. You know, we're committing to making sure that people see the things that we're doing as well.
Yes. And that when there are candidates and in these races that can make a difference. I mean, the House is very close. The House is very close. If one or two people die off, you know, it could go the other way real fast. I mean, or get indicted or resign or whatever. I mean, it's really close. But, you know, between now and building up for the midterms, it's important that we can also be able to help some candidates where we can as well in different ways. So there's always places for the resources to go. And we are trying to do our part. And we appreciate everyone who has been so supportive of us. We appreciate folks. Please support Julie and JoJo. They have been stalwarts in this, incredibly important voices. We are joining forces. There is more to come from all four of us. If you liked what you saw today, there is more to come. We encourage you guys to like and subscribe to all of our socials, because we will be having an announcement coming soon about that. And that's how that we're trying to do our part as independent voices here, doing what we can do, because like I said before, we can't depend on anybody else but us. Final words, Julie and Jojo. Jojo, you first.
I mean, I keep thinking about how you often frame, getting involved with Seneca Project as join us, right? Like that's what people need right now. And we've talked about this offline as well. It's this sense of community and this idea that we can all chip in our own ways. It's not one size fits all. A lot of people are looking to the question in the chat. They're looking for something to do. They need a direction where they can feel like they are participating in being the change that they seek. And Seneca and Julie, independently, you give people places to do that. I try to do that. Working with you guys, having a coalition with you guys, talking to you is cathartic for me, because I feel seen and sane and safe in this space, like not where I feel safe, where I can be, compliant, in safe where I can stand up and fight. So I love this idea of joining. That's it. That's what we have to do. That's the framework we need to take forward.
And I think that's right. I think we need to build a community. There are more of us than there are of them.
Mm-hmm. I say that all the time, Julie. That's so funny, right, Michelle? I say that all the time.
They are as good at communicating as they are, and they're very good at it. There are still more of us than there are of them. Some of us didn't come out to vote, which is why he got elected, but still there are more of us than there are of them. And so that's what we're trying to do. Please just join us, because we have to stop looking for a messiah to save us. Nobody's coming to save us. Not our congressmen, not our senators, not our governors. It's us. And you don't have to do it alone. We're all in this together. And I really hope over the last 2 hours, as depressed as you might have been when you started watching this, at least you're a little bit more energized now, or not, but we're here to make you understand that you are never alone, no matter where you are. Even if you're sitting alone right now, we are with you, because we're all of the same mind. So
absolutely,
come join us. We will be here for you for the duration. This is not a one-off. We are not going away.
Mm-hmm. We sure as hell are not. And there are a lot of folks in this space who are in it for the right reasons, that understand that fight. And it's important to know, to Michelle's point, that we do have community. And Michelle, final words, and then I think we should end on American Girl.
Oh, yeah. No, I just want to say that, I had a whole other life before I joined this fight. I have a theater degree. I was an actor. I wanted to be on Broadway. I was a backup singer for over a decade. And after that, I worked in offices. I was a waitress. I had a photography studio. But my heart was always in this fight. It's always what I really wanted to be doing. And by some luck, somebody I met through volunteering in Upper West Side politics was working at an organization that had an opening for an internship. And so at 37 years old, I took an internship during COVID to start working in politics and trying to fight back against Donald Trump. And for that reason, I worked my ass off, and I am sitting here with you today. So wherever you live, whatever your background is, however old you are, if you're a man, a woman, does not matter. You just put your heart and all of your time that you have to give into this. And I promise you will find your people, you will find your lane, you will find your way to make a difference in the way that you can. And I promise you, you will sleep better at night. You will wake up in the morning with purpose and something to do. And we hope that all of us here on this show today and going forward, that we can help guide you in the right direction and help be voices of reason and trust that you can go to, because we're not going to lie to you. We're not going to bullshit you. We're not going to fleece you, any of these things. And we're with you 100% all the way through this.
That's right. Every part, every person, every spirit collectively matters. It all matters. And so we're happy to be in this fight with you. Thank you, everybody. We're going to show American Girl, because as women, there's another aspect of this for us, why this is so important. But this is the spirit, and this is what we're going to do. And this is, it's up to us. So thank you for being a part of it with us and joining the fight. We'll see you guys soon. We'll see you guys on Thursday for the stakes, but make sure you like, subscribe to our email list and everything else and our socials for another announcement for something else coming your way. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Women's suffrage is a long story of hard work and heartache crowned by victory.
Was it so hard being an American girl?
Women throughout the country are committed to winning these rights for themselves.
Was it so hard living in a first problem world?
I'm Connie Chung, CBS News, New York.
When the American promise is the land of the free, but I'm waiting for the bill for the air that I breathe. Was it so hard being an American?
I do. I pray that we all remember our children are watching.
Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. Tell me, girls, what are we gonna do? Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. Tell me, girls, what are we gonna do? Every heart beats true for the red, white, and American girls. What are we gonna do? Every heart.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue. Tell me, girls, what are we gonna do?